Meril Wallace. I'm 22 years old from Whitewater, Colorado. Grew up in the valley.
Currently at CMU.
Currently at CMU, applying to grad schools all over on the western coast. And yeah, hopefully I get in somewhere in the next couple months and go from there.
Perfect, so that's the plan. That's where we're starting.
That is the overall plan at the moment, is get into grad school, hopefully continue my current body of work and just expand on that. And then hopefully get into teaching at the collegiate level. So.
What mediums do you usually use?
Primarily I work mixed media, like acrylic based and water based on wood panels. It's just the best way for me to get my ideas down, working in layers so they dry quickly instead of in oil where it takes a while to dry. So just mostly the dry time is why I use acrylic media.
So these are a couple of the pieces in the Art Cellar. Do you have a story about how they were created or where they came from, what they're inspired by?
Yeah, mostly with all of my pieces, they just start with a very organic shape, like a wash that's laid down or just a series of contoured lines. And then everything just starts to build upon itself. So it's a very kind of evolutionary way of working. The body of work just kind of creates itself and evolves within itself. So it's not necessarily any kind of idea from the beginning. It's just a starting point and then listening to where the piece will take me and adjusting to that.
So how long have you been doing things like this? How long have you been working on this kind of body of work?
I've been working with this current body of work for about a year and a half now. Before this I was working primarily in portraiture, and it slowly started to evolve into mapping out the face, and then it just became this point of not even necessarily needing a portrait for this to work, and so then it's just become this whole series of topo maps and just learning to map our surroundings.
So nature is your biggest inspiration, I'm assuming?
Yeah, growing up out here in western Colorado and spending my summers as a river guide, I'm just in the kind of canyon landscapes constantly, and so it's a huge influence in my work. And just seeing how it's all created from a water form and just being able to relate that into my work, and by using wood grains they already have a map-like quality of their own, and being able to just move forward with that. It's definitely inspired all from the natural surroundings.
And you get to play with the wood grain and use that as your first layer and then build from there.
Yes.
Instead of starting from a blank canvas.
Yeah, and so it really makes a nice series of pathways for which to build off of. And I've slowly started moving away from the wood grain a little bit more and using it just as a highlight aspect of my pieces. And it's starting to even shy further away from that and moving towards strictly starting from a gesso canvas and then just letting everything evolve from one single starting point instead of having wood grain to relate to.
When did you first realize you were an artist?
Kind of the first point I realized was in high school, probably my junior or senior year. Initially I was planning on going to Mesa for the mechanical engineering program, and just started taking a bunch of art classes and fell in love with it. Had a great teacher at Central that just really helped me get a grasp on what was going on in the whole art world thing, and just fell in love with it.
It's easy to do. And once you do, it's pretty much impossible to get rid of.
You can't get rid of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you have a famous artist that influenced you, or even like you said, your teacher?
Yeah, probably the biggest influence in my life so far in my art career has been my high school teacher, Joseph Gonzalez, and he was just made me fall in love with it. And then just other artists that I've seen in the past, like my first kind of real art museum I went to was in St. Louis, and they had a huge Gerhard Richter and Anselm Kiefer in one room, just directly across from each other, and it was just a powerful room.
It's mind-blowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then saw my first Monet water lilies while I was there, and just fell in love with it. So, but yeah, recently I've kind of been focusing on an artist guy named Watterson. He works in oils and kind of this surreal kind of landscape manner where he creates these kind of floating nebula type things.
Okay.
Just learning a bunch of his working manner. So.
And with the organic forms that you are drawn
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and a bunch of his stuff that's stemmed from the movements of magma and lava, and so it's all very kind of liquid related along with my stuff with the river and the canyon forms. So.
And it's really hard to portray that sometimes, especially this liquid on wood panel.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yes, and
tough.
so yeah, a lot of my stuff, it just kind of evolves from one thing. I'll put down one line, and it will, the next contour line I put next to it will adjust in just little tiny minute amounts, but after laying down 30 or 40 more lines, then you can really start to see a change within the contours. And so that's kind of where I'm interested.
Let's see, is there a favorite style or form of art that you're drawn to?
A lot of non-objective work. Never really understood it when I was young, but like seeing Rothkos and stuff, just looking at them and just why is this guy famous for painting colored squares?
Right.
But now just learning the history of art and just the time periods in which these artists were working and the kind of movements that were happening, it's really made me start to fall in love with that whole aspect of art. And I still love good academic representational drawing and stuff. I feel like it's very necessary for any kind of artist is knowing good solid drawing foundations. But just for me, it's a challenge to get people to like non-representational work, because if someone sees you can draw a portrait or a figure, they think you're incredible. But if someone thinks you're incredible based off of just forms, then I feel like that speaks more.
Well, and that stuff, like Picasso was one of the most academically skilled painters ever, and he chose to create the work that he did, and wasn't really represented in the right ways. That's a huge thing, and I'm such a big supporter of knowing the artist as much as the piece of art. So I think that just only adds to it, is just knowing you and what you create and seeing that it comes from an honest place instead of just forms. So, let's see. What inspires you to constantly create art, to constantly motivate yourself to move forward?
That's a good one. I think just the internal drive to create. Like ever since I was little, I've always loved doing stuff with my hands, and I carve chunks of stone, I draw pictures on the walls, and just destroy things and try to create things. But I think I'm just in love with the process and just being able to create something from nothing. And so that's why, like with my work, I take the time to construct all my own panels and make sure that they're just a great craftsmanship, and then just really take the time to look into my work and study my work. And it's just, I don't really know how to explain it, but
it's just very much
just
a part of you.
It's just the need to make things.
Love it. Let's see. Where do you see your art going from here? Obviously, it's morphed into this. Do you see more morphing?
Absolutely. Just
every piece you produce, is there different?
I feel like that's one thing with art, is it has to be changing. It's a very evolutionary process, because once you get to a point where you're creating something, like let's say it just starts selling off the walls and you can sell continuously off this one form, then your art just becomes stagnant. And yeah, you might be successful in like monetary terms, but as far as pushing your own body of work and pushing what you can do as an artist, it doesn't really do much of anything for you. So, of course, I expect my work to change and drastically if I get into grad school, because I know that
Instantaneously.
it's going to change. It has to.
Yeah.
So.
But that's something to look forward to instead of fearing.
Definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like your fans, viewers to know about you, your art?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Of course, thank you.